Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports, and you are on the record. A unique podcast, at least I hope so, that talks about the past 50 years, COVID, and the next 50 years of the sports business, where it's been, what the challenges were, and where it's going. And it started really 50 years ago. This is the first Miami Dolphin ticket ever for the old Miami Dolphins over 50 years ago. Less than $5 for this ticket. Average NFL revenues, less than $4 million at the time. If you're a baseball player, you're going to make about $26,000 at that time. And then George Steinbrenner sets the stage by buying the New York Yankees 50 years ago, $10 million. About 50 years after that, the industry was worth $1.3 trillion a year. Highly visible, highly controversial, and an industry worth watching. But yet, on March 11, 2020, the whole thing changes. Rudy Gobert tests positive for COVID, playing for the Jazz in Oklahoma City. Tire industry shuts down, losing $12 billion a week. How are you ever going to come back? Resilience, it did come back. And the roaring 20s in the 1900s, Yankee Stadium and otherwise, Spanish flu recovery gave way to a bigger and wider-ranging scale of recovery from COVID 100 years later. And look, the Yankees, obviously, $9-10 billion. Imagine Steinbrenner for $9-10 million. Steve Ross turns down an offer to buy the Miami Dolphins for $10 billion. Television revenues of the NFL, cumulative contracts, nearly $200 billion. NIL, nobody even knew what that was, now over $3 billion a year. And when you think about all of the numbers, it's a success after COVID because of three factors. One, survival of the fittest, uniqueness. Second of all, creativity in the context of taking the next step and standing out. And third, collaboration, cooperation, best practices. You put all of them together and you look at the next 50 years. Big challenges, Web 3.0, globalization. We're scared of AI. What are we going to do with it? NIL. Get the toothpaste back in the tube, for the metaphor. What about conference realignment? What about the franchise free agency, team free agency, player free agency, stadium development? All of that stuff, we need some defining and guiding moments. Well, luckily, this podcast can give you some of that perspective with some unparalleled cooperation with the Falk Institute of Sports at Syracuse University and the UNLV Global Sports Innovation Institute as well, along with the partnership that they had sponsoring the CCON Development Conference with USA Today. Came back from the conference, had some interesting perspective. The content is great, but the podcast will hopefully take some of the issues that have been raised by these partners and take them to the next level with some interviews that I hope you're going to like. And the bottom line is, hopefully you'll have a good time, and you may even learn something in the process. So sit, don't go anywhere. Every week, we will theme it around major events and a mega interview, and hopefully you'll be entertained and you might even learn something. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and you're on the record. We're on the record. Sports Entertainment Innovation Conference, CCON Conference in Las Vegas in mid-July, set the standard for conferences, but also gave me an opportunity to see some of my old friends and reconnect. Brandon Steiner, first, he was a keynote and a very important person at CCON. Second, a contributor to my Sport Business Handbook, I put him to work for free. And third, in inverse order of importance, he's been the pioneer of all things memorabilia for years. He launched the Steiner Agency and Collectables Exchange in late 2019 after selling Steiner Sports to Fanatics. Recognized as a pioneer in the sports memorabilia industry, he founded Steiner Sports in 1987 with $4,000, a Mac computer, and an intern, growing into one of the largest companies in the field, known as creating unique partnerships, Yankees, Cowboys, Madison Square Garden, regular contributor to ESPN New York, to the Yes Network, big-time Yankee guy, has lectured at Harvard Business School and Yale, they let him do it, and other places. And most important, a good friend. Caught up with him at one of the inaugural dinners at CCon that week in Vegas. Certainly some great perspective. Here is Brandon Steiner. Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. This is going to be fun because we do this all the time. Drink a toast to my good friend, Steiner Collectables, Steiner Incorporated. Collectible Exchange now because the name, I don't care what the brand is, I don't care what the name is, but it's Steiner, more Steiner, and everything. You've been through a lot of stuff. We are fellow, we'll talk about it in a minute, Brandon Steiner, Syracuse guy. Really good to see you.
Great to see you.
He was talking about, as all of these people around here in this room, they aspired to get into Harvard. Some do, most don't. So, congratulations with the Syracuse. I guess everybody reaches their level, correct?
I think so. To me, just going to college was a big move.
Yeah.
Once I got into Syracuse on a complete poverty, I had no money.
How'd you get in, by the way?
I got in at 760 on my boards. Combined.
Wow, combined. Yeah, I was going to say.
And then I had no money.
Keep the line away, man. Come on.
And went to a pass-fail high school, so I had no grades.
Yeah, right, of course.
And
did you give somebody a bat? Here's a Yankee bat.
No, it wasn't quite that, but I went to see a lady. My mother said, look, I could understand if you don't want to go to college.
Right.
Because you've been kind of on the streets and you could go make a living now.
Yeah.
But if you want to run a company one day, you probably should go.
And
I want you to find the most expensive school in New York State. And that was
Syracuse. Okay. And you said you went to see a lady and you got
to go make a sale.
And you sweet talk this lady.
100%. I told her she would never regret it, and I'll come there one day and make her proud.
And you made her proud.
I mean, I did. It was not easy to get through Syracuse. I had a learning disability. Really struggled to read and write. That's kind of a main principle, by the way, that you probably shouldn't have to do. But
you gotta go. You gotta
take freshman English 3 times.
Okay,
that was a sign. But what's funny is after I got into Syracuse, I definitely applied to Harvard
and
Penn, Duke.
Did Harvard decided to look the other way?
I think it was a huge mistake.
A huge mistake on this part, man. This is. By the way, we're taking this to the Catskills.
I would have excelled at Harvard.
Yeah.
This is more of a conversation classroom as opposed.
Yeah, it is.
I probably would have done well there.
Well, and plus, I do the sports law class. I teach the kids pretty early on. No yes or no answers. If you do, go to the sciences. You got to learn how to say it depends, and you never have to do a right answer, right?
Yeah,
so that's a really good thing. So
it would have been a great fit for me, I think.
I think so too. Another contributor to the Sport Business Handbook. Amazing. First of all, thanks for being here. And in all seriousness, to elevate a business which has the perception of being a very difficult business to track, to make sure to register honesty. I mean, all of those things, and you made it a white glove business. I mean, it's your business. How does it make you feel?
I love my career.
Yeah.
I love the ups and downs of it. And believe me, there are a lot of downs. I've been outside in a lot of parking lots. I'm a relationship guy.
Yeah, I know you are.
And the way I summarize my career, and I just written this article the other day. Most people look at their life as, their relationships as a two-way street.
Yeah.
It's a three-way street. Two-way street will get you going. You can do business. I do for you. You do for me.
Yeah.
But when you're in a two-way street, there will come a time when you could lose that relationship. I've always been a three-way street guy. Yeah. I want to do more for my relationships than they're going to do for me.
Yeah.
I want to lead with love. I want to do the extra. I want to do the things that they didn't even ask me to do. So whenever it comes up, they're never going to leave me. And that's how I've built that business based on that principle.
But it's hard to do in a business that is inherently difficult. I was going to say dirty. Dirty's wrong, but it's inherently difficult, right?
It's difficult because you're dealing with an up and down market.
Right.
Players here today, gone tomorrow, hot today, cold tomorrow, and people are buying that stuff based on that emotion.
Yeah.
Based on the memories. So it's difficult that way, and then it's still a little bit of an open highway, like with not a lot of stop signs and traffic lights. So
still,
it's kind of a little gray about what is a collectible and what should be on that highway. I think I've added and contributed to creating some organization and blueprint around it.
You're too humble. I mean, you really created the framework of an industry that can be monetized. Why? Because you can track it and people can believe it, and the cheats seem to weed their way out. I mean, that's all you.
Well, listen, I love the loyalty I've gotten from fans, yourself. It's humbling. I really appreciate what you just said. And something, I love my career. I love what I've done. Mainly because I tell people all the time, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I did it anyway.
What was the epiphany? You grabbed a bat you probably don't have to pay for it because you don't pay for anything. And then you sit there and you say, man, I can monetize this. How do I do it?
Actually, the epiphany was really, I'm in Dallas. I was doing a Roger Staubach appearance.
Okay.
And I made my 10%, $1,000. He got 10, I got $1,000. And I realized that the client needed helmets, and I was a big collector of photos and magazines. And when I booked them again, I went to the client. I brought him all kinds of helmets, footballs, and everything else. And I'm like, wow, this I have an early indication that people really like this stuff, and they'll pay for it. So I was able to make more money on that than I did on the appearance. Yeah. That was the beginning of it. I never thought, Rick, ever, this was going to be a brand. Yeah. I was just thinking there's a B2B play. I was booking a lot of players, as I do still to this day. And how can I make more than just a little 10%? And then all of a sudden, people started asking me for autograph this, autograph that. And
by the way, I just want to say, my guys, we're doing like this. This is Brandon Steiner. I'm going to go as long as I want to go with him, okay? It won't be that long, but just don't, I mean, look, this is an institution, and he's not getting any younger, so this may be like one of the last interviews.
I tell my wife all the time, man. And by the way, that indication on that note is we all are going to die.
Yes, well,
and that's how I decided to build this other company, Collectible Exchange.
Yeah, talk about that.
Because if you're going to die, what are you going to do with all these collectibles?
Yeah.
So I came up with this hub that people can send stuff to me. I verify, authenticate, organize, get that stuff out of your house,
right,
and help sell it so you can have joy doing something else with the money. So it's there's guys of our age are sitting with a lot of stuff, and I feel like I'm actually doing a service for a lot of people.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to rack this up because I'm really going to use him professionally, and it's a discount. I don't know what would be X, but I'm doing it at X minus for you, pal.
I love this stuff, and I'm going to go in the Salesman Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to sell not only more stuff, I've sold more dirt and all that stuff, but I'm going to sell it twice.
Yeah.
Because people are now, by the thousands of items that I've sold them, they're not coming back to me. I'm selling it the second time. And I love that.
We will wrap this up, but tell me, where is this business going? 5 years, where's this whole business going?
I think
the three-dimensional stuff that people can't see, the digital stuff, which is stupid. But
nah, I think they got to have the physical. I really do. I think there's room for the digital. I think there's room for this. I don't want to say NFT, but there is room for something like that, along with the physical, particularly if you're going to a big game and now there's no more tickets, for example. Right. But I think the business is going to get wider, and you'll see a lot more athletes do their own.
Yeah.
And control their own. Because now they're smart, they're saving the stuff, but what are you going to do with it all? And I'm hoping to see more rock and roll entertainers get in the game. There's such a high demand. And then what I'm going to play my role is cricket, rugby.
You're gonna sell
Savannah bananas. Like, I love all these quirky things that are great moments of sports.
I will tell you as we end that any cricket fan, if you're interested in selling your cesta, what is the thing called? Wicket.
The wicket.
The cesta, that's highlight. I mean, anybody that wants to sell your cricket stuff, that's the man. Brandon Steiner, I love you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow, toast out to Brandon Steiner. See you soon. Well, a great perspective and a great collectibles guy. But listen, collectibles are just a small part, but a significant and growing part of the $1.3 trillion sports business. And as usual, let's look at the last 5 biggest issues, in my judgment, over the last couple of weeks. Number 1, the big PAC-2, PAC-6, PAC-8. What are they? Well, they need 8 schools to play in any significant way. The courts have given them a couple of years. The departing schools, those from the Mountain West, the big deals, the ones that made the issue happen late last week, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, they have to pay $18 million each, more than the $70 million collectively, plus the $40 million PAC-12 owes to the Mountain West in poaching fees, they call it. That was part of the conference's scheduling agreement for the season. And they thought that wasn't enough, or was enough, to keep the economics in place and keep them there. Obviously mistaken. When BYU, TCU, Utah left in 2011, the case was made. The schools were expected to receive somewhere north of $10 million annually in the Pac-12. What did the Pac-12 get? Well, we'll have to see. Long-term, not enough to keep people short-term, but long-term enough to redo the deal that was successfully generated by Washington State and Oregon State. Obviously, the court system kept this deal going, and we'll see what happens in 2022-23. The ACC distributed an average of $44.8 million per school. Cal, Stanford may not be happy because they may only get 30% of those revenues. Can you generate more in a new Pac-12? Well, nobody's talking about it, but we'll have to see. That's number one. Number two, a tremendous event in Vegas at the Sphere. UFC President Dana White produced the first ever combat sports card in Vegas's new facility. Made a lot of records. First of all, the highest ever UFC gate, $22 million. The biggest gate in the history of the Sphere. The biggest Mexico celebration event, even though the card didn't turn out the way it should have, they said. 160,000 square foot screen, not to mention something amazing when you fly into Vegas. One of the most successful UFC events ever. More to come. Number three, Disney, DirecTV agree on a deal. Maybe a couple of weeks too late for irate viewers, but the number three provider in the country now has its mojo and stability back. Video experiences through more flexible options. That was kind of what the deal was spun as Disney and ESPN move forward. Would they get an ability for DirecTV to offer consumers multiple direct-to-consumer streaming services, including ESPN Plus, rights for DirecTV to offer its customers forthcoming flagship streaming services at no additional cost, continued carriage for Disney channels on DirecTV at market-based terms. DirecTV, more than 11 million subscribers, and now things are back to normal with the maelstrom of streaming and cord-cutting dominating the landscape. That's next. How about number four? Fox Sports aiming to redo its Friday night package. You remember when everybody was complaining on Friday nights about, oh, you're not going to affect the territorial integrity of high school games. That's important. Yeah, it's important, but it doesn't dominate anymore. And Fox now has a new Friday night package. They used to have WWE SmackDown, but remember, they drew about 2 to 2.5 million viewers before moving to USA Network. Why did they move? Well, easy. A 5-year, $1.4 billion deal. What Fox has done is replace it with a Friday night package, which is primarily West Coast schools. Problem is the deals with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, they really can't be involved because of their huge Big Ten deal and the economic restrictions there. They're looking ahead, says Fox, a tie-in to the World Series, games that are West Coast driven. See where that goes. But clearly, one action begets another. That's number four. And then finally, over the last couple of weeks, let's reflect back on the U.S. Tennis Open. The finals with the Yannick Sinner Taylor Fritz event drew about 1.8 million viewers across ABC, about a 31% decline from last year. We understand that even though in America in the final, it's kind of interesting, but no Djokovic, no Nadal, no Federer. The Arena Sabalenka, Jess Pagula match, about 1.8 million, down 53% from last year. Yes, she is a celebrity, but Coco Gauff won last year, and that was the issue. And the semifinals on the American side with the men, Tiafoe and Fritz, about 2.96 million. It's a big deal. But remember that Friday evening semifinals? What game? Packers-Eagles game on Peacock in Sao Paulo. Couldn't catch a break. Bottom line is another great box office year for the U.S. Open. More dollars available for them and tennis in the United States. So that's going backward. Let's look at what the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks look like for the top five going forward. And number one, the deal with Man City. A hearing begins to talk about the 115 Premier League charges against Man City. By the way, the independent investigators started looking 2 Februaries ago about alleged violations of the top flight financial rules. In the meantime, Man City wins the fourth consecutive Premier League title last May, but the bottom line is there are still issues relative to finances. Little progress had been made after 2.5 years, 115 charges. City challenged the Premier League over the Associated Party transaction, the APT rules, which are designed to ensure that the deals done with entities known to everybody level the playing field. We'll have to see how that all shakes out. The hearings start immediately. Number 2, men's cricket, World Cup 2023. How about this? $1.39 billion of economic impact. Look at the numbers. 1.25 million spectators attended the tournament, a new record. Tourism across the host cities amounted to about $861 million US in revenue generation, accommodation, hotel, travel, transport, meals, etc. Secondary and incremental spends in the economy generated about $515 million, amounted to 37% total impact. 73% of total attendees said hosting the event reflected positively on India's image and the pan-India impact not associated with the host city, calculated to not be another $250 million. Bottom line is a great event, especially in India, but all over the world. Number 2. Number 3, the NBA and MLB at least are looking at ideas to long-term deal with regional networks. The next 6 months, says Adam Silver, will be taken to study the possibility of a national RSN model as soon as the 2025-26 season. 13 franchises remain in flux, but Bally's continues the operations. The 1-year contingency and the deal with the NBA keeps them afloat, depending on what the bankruptcy hearings say. And several NBA franchises, including the Mavericks, Suns, Pelicans, have made the decisions to ditch traditional RSNs in favor of their own different newfangled broadcasting. And then there's baseball, which is still contentious relative to this whole deal. And again, we'll have to see how that all pans out. So that's number 3. Number 4, what is walking away, we're not talking about it at this point yet, mean for Tua's contract? Let's remember he's in the middle of medical evaluation. The latest information says that he wants to continue playing. A large $167 million chunk of his deal is guaranteed. About $42 million of that already been paid out this year. And according to the various folks who've read the contract, if he's cleared but chooses to retire, he gives up the rest of the $124 million unless he talks settlement. And if he's forced to medically retire, he can claim that $124 million. The Dolphins, after next March, have the ability to release him. Only his $50 million of the 2025 compensation on the hook. Listen, nobody wants to talk about any of this. Tua is the face of the franchise. He's gutted it out. He quickly said that he wants to come back, but just the contract says what the contract says. That's number 4. Number 5, Topgolf Callaway brands to split into 2 separate companies, independent. And the split comes just 3.5 years after they merged following Callaway's acquisition of Topgolf in March 2021. Callaway consists of the company's existing golf equipment and active lifestyle businesses, as well as Toptracer, and they're expected to retain all existing Topgolf Callaway brands' financial debt. They reported revenue, Callaway, of $2.5 billion, including Toptracer, over the 12-month period from Q2 to Q2 23 through Q2 of 24. Topgolf reported revenues of $1.8 billion over the same time scale. Point is, the golf industry continues to evolve, merge, and expand. And this is just one other example of that. So we got a lot to deal with last couple of weeks and a lot more to deal with next couple of weeks. We'd like to thank our friend Brandon Steiner, who is also always involved in memorabilia and also a good friend, a contributor to When the Game is on the Line, as well as Sport Business Handbook. Like to thank Callie Kazar for helping us put together the program and others as well. The 24/7 news channel, sports business channel, and other opportunities to watch the podcast and hear Brandon Steiner and see what's happening in the $1.3 trillion business of sports. I'm Rick Horrow, sports professor Speak with you soon.